I was sipping my morning coffee when the message came through. My phone buzzed once, soft and sharp, the kind of sound that doesn't prepare you for heartbreak. It was from Ethan, my husband. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore. At all." For a moment, I didn't breathe. My thumb hovered over the screen, the words blurring through the reflection of my own stunned face. I could smell the faint vanilla creamer melting into the coffee beside me, hear the distant hum of traffic beyond the glass windows of my condo. Everything felt too normal for a life that had just cracked in half. Behind me, drawers opened and closed. My uncle, Robert, was quietly packing my things into brown boxes. He said he was helping, but it felt more like an ending. Shirts folded with careful distance. Books stacked without conversation. Funny, isn't it? How someone can pack your memories like they're organizing a stranger's leftovers. I didn't cry. Not this time. Not after years of pretending everything was fine. The silk of my blouse clung to my skin as if even fabric could sense the tension beneath it. When I finally looked up from my phone, I saw my reflection in the window, the city skyline behind me, the woman in front of it, unshaken yet undone. Maybe space was what Ethan needed. But what if, for once, that space was exactly what I needed too? It's strange how quiet memories sound when they finally resurface. 3 years ago, I was standing in the same kitchen, same light spilling through the blinds. Except back then, I still wore my wedding ring with pride. I still believed in Ethan's promises in forever, and in the idea that love meant patience. He was already drifting from me then, though I didn't want to see it. His words came polished, professional, the kind of man who could sound kind even while cutting you down. "Ava, you're overreacting again. No one's trying to hurt you. We just need you to focus on being less dramatic. Less dramatic. Less emotional. Less me." He said it after I questioned why he stopped inviting me to family dinners. After his mother's tight smiles turned into thin-lipped sighs whenever I entered the room. After whispers about how I wasn't a Mitchell by blood found their way to my ears. I remember that night vividly. My hands shook as I tried to cook dinner, the scent of burnt garlic filling the air. I turned off the stove, staring down at the pan as tears blurred my vision. That's when Uncle Robert walked in.
He was visiting for the weekend.
He didn't say much, he never did, but he saw enough. He sat down beside me at the table, his voice low and hesitant. "Sometimes, Ava, when people start packing your things, it's not your cue to beg them to stop. It's your sign to start walking." Those words stayed with me. Like a splinter I never pulled out. The following weeks were a blur, arguments with Ethan, the silent dinners, the cold distance. When I finally confronted him, he didn't fight back. He just sighed, tired, like I was a problem he didn't have energy to fix. The night I left, it wasn't stormy or cinematic. Just quiet. I folded my own clothes into a duffel bag, slipped off my wedding ring, and placed it gently on the counter. Robert offered to drive me to a motel. I said no. I needed to start walking just like he said. And that was the night I decided. If they didn't want me in their world, I'd build one they couldn't touch. Starting over wasn't graceful. It wasn't some montage of soft music and sunshine. It was cold air, a secondhand coat, and a motel room that smelled faintly of bleach and loneliness. The first few nights, I stared at the ceiling wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I replayed Ethan's voice in my head. "You're too much, Ava." Maybe I was. But for once, I decided being too much was better than being nothing at all. I took the only thing I had left, my degree in interior design, and started looking for work. Most firms didn't even reply. The ones that did wanted someone with more experience. So I made my own. I offered to redesign a friend's small cafe for free. I spent 3 sleepless nights painting walls, sewing curtains by hand, and sketching ideas until my fingers cramped. When it opened, the cafe wasn't just a space, it was a story. Warm light, honey-colored wood, soft corners that whispered comfort. People noticed. 1 client became 3. 3 turned into 10. And soon, I was working under a mentor named Clara James, a woman who owned one of the most respected design studios in Seattle. Clara didn't see me as broken. She saw me as becoming. "You've got an eye, Ava," she told me once, sliding a cup of coffee across the table. "But more importantly, you've got soul. Never let anyone strip that from your work." Under her guidance, I learned the business side, contracts, client meetings, negotiating fees without shrinking. Every time I presented a design, my voice stopped trembling a little more. By the end of 2 years, I'd saved enough to start my own studio. AM Designs, initials that stood for Ava Mitchell, though I rarely said it out loud. I wanted my work to speak before my name did. The growth was slow, but steady. My designs started appearing in magazines, quietly featured without fanfare. I didn't post pictures of myself, just my work. When Ethan's family asked around, people said they heard Ava was doing fine. That was enough. Late nights turned into early mornings filled with gratitude instead of grief. I'd walk through my studio, the faint scent of sawdust and coffee mingling, and realize I was finally creating something that couldn't be packed into a box. Sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of that old duffel bag in my closet, the one I left with. I never unpacked it. It reminded me that everything I needed had always been inside me. And though I never said it out loud, I kept whispering a quiet promise to myself. One day, they'll see who I've become. Not to prove them wrong, but to remind myself how right I was to leave. 3 years later, the sound of my phone buzzing still made my pulse tighten, a habit I never quite unlearned. But that morning, when it rang, the name on the screen wasn't Ethan's. It was Uncle Robert. I hesitated before answering. "Hey, Uncle Rob," I said softly, my voice steady in a way that only comes from healing. He cleared his throat. "Ava, we're in Seattle. Ethan's with me. We wanted to see you, if that's all right." For a second, I almost laughed. Now they wanted to see me. After that text. After the silence. After being erased from their world. Still, I told them to come. Not out of forgiveness, but out of closure. When they arrived at my studio, the lobby smelled faintly of cedar and espresso. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers. My assistant greeted them with the kind of warmth I once used to force through clenched teeth. I watched from my office upstairs as they stepped inside. Ethan in his crisp navy suit, Robert holding his hat awkwardly, both looking around with uncertain admiration. They didn't know. They didn't know this space, this 3-story studio with clean lines, soft gold accents, and a staff of 20, belonged to me. I walked out to meet them. Ethan's eyes widened slightly, his practiced confidence cracking for just a heartbeat. "Ava," he said, his tone half relief, half disbelief.
"Ethan." My voice was calm. Too calm.
I guided them through the studio, letting their silence fill the air. Design boards covered one wall, luxury apartments, boutique hotels, brand collaborations. My name wasn't on the front, but the initials, AM Designs, glimmered in brushed gold at every corner. Ethan stopped near a display table. "This place is incredible. You work here?" I smiled, a small, knowing curve of the lips. "Not quite." He blinked. "Oh, then. I own it." The silence that followed was almost tender. You could hear the weight of those words settle into the room like dust after a storm. Uncle Robert swallowed hard. "You built this yourself?" "I did," I said quietly, "while you were all giving me space." Ethan tried to recover, adjusting his tie. "Ava, we didn't mean to hurt you. Things got complicated and my family—" "Your family?" I interrupted gently. "They made it clear what they thought of me. You just agreed." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The same way he used to whenever things got uncomfortable, when truth was louder than pride. I turned toward the window, the city's skyline glowing beyond the glass. "You know, I used to think that message destroyed me," I said. "But it didn't. It freed me. You told me not to reach out, so I reached higher instead." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even Robert looked at me differently, like he was seeing me for the first time, not as the fragile niece he once pitied, but as a woman who'd walked through fire and came out shining. Ethan's voice cracked. "I didn't realize you." "Of course you didn't," I said softly. "You never looked close enough to see who I could become." I let him stand there, surrounded by everything he'd underestimated. The art, the glass, the quiet power of my name etched into every surface. Then I smiled, the kind that ends chapters. "I appreciate you both coming," I said. "But I have a meeting in 10. My team's waiting." As I turned to leave, I saw their reflections in the glass. Ethan's regret, Robert's pride, and my own calm face in between. That was the moment I realized I wasn't the woman they left behind anymore. I was the one who had outgrown them. They didn't leave right away. An hour after the meeting that never happened, I found both of them still sitting in the lounge, Ethan staring at the floor, Uncle Robert tracing his fingers along the edge of a design book like he was searching for courage. I stood near the window again, arms crossed, sunlight spilling across the floor between us. Ethan was the first to speak. "Ava, I didn't know how to fix it. I thought giving you space would calm things down, not break them forever." His voice was softer now, not commanding, not rehearsed. Just human. I took a slow breath. "Space doesn't fix what silence caused, Ethan. You didn't give me room to heal. You gave me emptiness to disappear into." Uncle Robert cleared his throat, his eyes heavy with something that looked a lot like shame. "Your aunt's been sick, Ava. The family's been struggling. We thought maybe you could help." There it was, the reason. Not closure. Not reconciliation.
Need.
I looked at them both, two men who once decided for me, speaking now like men unsure if they still had that right. "I'll help," I said quietly. Ethan blinked, surprised. "But there are conditions." They both looked up. I stepped closer, not with anger, but with clarity. "Ethan, if you want any part of this partnership, emotional, business, whatever you think this could be, it starts with honesty.
Therapy.
Real accountability. I'm not stepping back into a marriage where silence is safer than truth." He nodded slowly, jaw tight, guilt flickering across his face. Then I turned to Robert. "And you, Uncle, you taught me to walk when people start packing my things. Now I need you to walk toward your own life. No more carrying other people's decisions on your back. You deserve peace too." He looked at me for a long time, eyes glassy. "You sound just like your mother," he murmured. "Stronger, maybe." I smiled faintly. She'd want it that way. I wrote down a number and handed it to him. "I'll help Aunt Maggie with her medical expenses." Quietly. No family strings, no gossip, no judgment. Just help. Then I turned back to Ethan. "As for you, whether you're part of my future or not will depend on whether you can respect the woman I've become, not the one you tried to mold." He nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I understand." I believed he meant it, at least for that moment. There was a long silence before I spoke again. "I didn't build this place out of revenge," I said softly. "I built it so the next time someone tried to pack my life away, they'd have nowhere big enough to fit it." Ethan looked around, taking in the space once more. The art, the light, the quiet elegance of everything that bore my touch. "I don't think I ever really knew you," he said finally. I smiled, not bitter, not smug, just calm.
No.
"But now you do." They left that afternoon, quietly, without the weight of old arguments, without promises they couldn't keep. When the elevator doors closed behind them, I stood there for a long time, listening to the soft hum of the studio, the faint tapping of rain against the glass. For the first time in years, the silence felt peaceful. Not empty, peaceful. I walked back into my office, where the city stretched endlessly beyond the windows. On my desk sat the same duffel bag I had carried out of my old life, untouched, still zipped. I never had the heart to open it. It was my reminder that beginnings often look like endings in disguise. Slowly, I pulled the zipper open. Inside, neatly folded, was a small linen handkerchief embroidered with my initials, AM. A note was tucked inside, yellowed from years of being ignored. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Uncle Robert's. "When people pack your things, Ava, don't unpack your worth." I smiled, tears threatening but never falling. That sentence had carried me through every night I almost gave up, every door that closed, every cruel whisper I had learned to silence with success. The rain outside grew steadier, painting ripples down the glass. I thought about Ethan, his apology, his regret. Maybe one day he'd change. Maybe not. But I had stopped waiting for him to. I thought about Robert, his tired eyes, his quiet pride when he realized I had survived. Maybe that was his healing too. And then I thought about myself, the girl who once stood in a small kitchen, crying over burnt garlic, believing her world was ending. She didn't end. She transformed. I placed the note back in the bag, zipped it closed, and set it in the corner of the office, not hidden, not displayed, just there. A quiet symbol of where I began. The intercom buzzed. My assistant's voice came through, bright and gentle. "Ms. Mitchell, your next client's here." I glanced once more at the skyline, at the streaks of sunlight cutting through the clouds. "Send them in," I said. And as the door opened, I smiled. Not for them, not for closure, but for the woman who finally took up her own space. Because in the end, they packed my things once. But I was the one who decided what to keep.